Welcome to our very first episode of Never Alone, Never Again, sponsored by Never Alone Recovery. We are excited to meet you all and excited to talk to you guys about lots of things. I'm Johnny, and of course I'm joined by Krista, aka the Sober Barbie. Since we're here, why don't you introduce yourself? Who's Krista?
I'm Krista, aka Sober Barbie. I'll celebrate 11 years by the grace of God of sobriety in August. I just speak up on recovery, addiction. I'm trying to use my pain for purpose and wherever I can. And who's Johnny?
Who is Johnny? That's an interesting question. I've been sober for 22 years. I am the CEO of Never Alone Recovery, and my goal is to help others. And more than anything, I want to help others to help others. And I am a big guy and I love my program. I love my faith, and I love being able to talk to new people and introduce them to the fact that there is another way of life if they choose to try it. So that's who I am. But we're going to be talking today about kind of a heavy subject for our very first podcast. This is kind of a heavy subject. We are going to be talking about the fentanyl epidemic. And then why are we talking about the fentanyl epidemic? Because the fentanyl in 2023, I believe it was 2023, there were 72,000 deaths from overdose and fentanyl overdose specifically. And it's the leading cause of death for people 18 to 45. And this is people, I think people hear that stat and they're like, oh, people die from all sorts of things. This is the leading cause, not getting into car accidents, not cancer, not, AIDS. This is a real epidemic, and fentanyl is out there killing people, and this is something that needs to be talked about. So I'm glad we're talking about it. But Krista, what is fentanyl?
It's a synthetic opioid. It's made by man, and it's supposed to mimic what you're getting from a pharmacy, but it is deadly. It's taking lives. It's not just taking lives from people like purposely using it. It's poisoning people, and especially the kids. It doesn't take much of it either. If I'm not mistaken, it's 2 milligrams, which is 10 to 15 grains of salt. Like a tiny bit is a lethal dose.
The teeniest bit is the lethal dose. 2 milligrams, 10 to 15 grains of salt is a lethal dose of fentanyl. But so it's opioid. It's a man-made synthetic opioid. So it's made in a lab. And I think that's the trickiest part, because it's 50 times stronger than heroin, right? Heroin, of course, comes from opium, which comes from a plant, which is processed. And, this is all just man-made in a lab somewhere. And, in the late 90s and the early 2000s, it was big for prescriptions for pain, kind of like the Oxycontins and other stuff. Fentanyl was used in hospitals and prescribed, and then all of a sudden they stopped prescribing it so much, because just like the Oxycontin epidemic and all the stuff that was going on with that, they said, oh wait, fentanyl is really addictive as well, and they slowed down the prescriptions. And when they slowed down the prescriptions, that's when the real dark stuff started coming out, and that was when the drug cartels started pushing fentanyl, because they can just make it in a lab somewhere, and
it's not a pharmacist. A pharmacist isn't making this, or a doctor. This is just anybody who's not medically trained in making this. So it's even more deadly.
It's like meth. Meth can be just completely fabricated out of nowhere by mixing some chemicals together. Fentanyl is the same. It's it's 100 times more potent than morphine. Everybody knows morphine. Morphine, you see it in the movies where people are clicking the button to get more morphine in the drip, because that's what hospitals give morphine all over for pain. And now fentanyl is 100 times stronger. Man, that's wild. That's wild, wild, wild. And it's getting in everywhere. And you have personal knowledge about this.
Yeah, I'm from a resort island, and they like to keep everything hush hush, and they don't talk about it, but it's everywhere. It's everywhere. People are just making pressed pills in their own homes with pill presses and adding a little fentanyl to whatever it is. Like, I remember back in the day with when it came to like cocaine, they would cut it with like baby laxatives, laxatives and baby aspirin and whatever, and you really didn't know what you were getting. And that's kind of what they're doing with this. They're adding like a little bit to try to trick the buyer into thinking they're getting what they're getting. But I've lost at least 3 dozen friends in the last 10 years to this, and it hits my gut every time. Like, you just don't know when it's going to be someone's last, or people trying to get sober and go out one more time, and that's all it took. And I've buried my childhood best friend and family members, and then my own husband has struggled with it. And watching it, because I got sober the year illicit fentanyl hit the streets in 2015. That's when it like really started coming around. And as the years have went on, it has evolved so much. It changes like daily, like a stronger strain of it keeps coming up. There's many different strains. There's other stuff too, like xylazine and tranquilizers and all that. And just watching what it did to his brain and made him so confused, and just like, it was like almost like a dementia patient. Like, he didn't know where he was, and it just takes you out of your mind. And I've noticed a lot of like local arrests are public disorderly conduct, like or like being a public drunk, but they're not. It's that. And the cops like don't know what to do, so they throw them in jail and let them right back out, and they go right back to it. And you never know when it's going to be someone's last time. You really don't.
Yeah, it's a roll of the dice every time somebody messes with this fentanyl stuff. And there's a couple different variations of fentanyl, right? There is using it with other substances. The dealers they add fentanyl to heroin, they add it to cocaine, they add it to meth to make those drugs stronger. But I think the sneaky part is what you were just referring to with the fake pills. The fake pills are everywhere, and this is I think the biggest concern. At least in my head, it's the biggest concern, because there's so many pills that are prescribed that people are already addicted to. They're already taking like crazy. There's 3.5 million kids taking Adderall right now. And what is one of the top drugs that is being mass produced in fake pills with nothing but Adderall? And it's, there are people who are already prescribed, or people who know of what Adderall does, because when misused, Adderall is kind of like a speed or something like that. And, and now it's being replaced with straight fentanyl. And the fake pills are crazy, and hang on, I've got a stat. Between 2020 and 2024, so in 4 years, the government seized 150,000 pounds of fentanyl. That it was seized, 150,000 pounds of fentanyl.
Divide that by 2 milligrams, or right, and that's how many lives.
That's nothing but lethal doses. This is, and then in 72,000 people dying because of this. This is just crazy. And being a recovering addict, being someone who's in recovery, how much does the DEA actually get? When you look back at the 80s with all the cocaine that was smuggled in, right? Of all the cocaine that was smuggled in, how much did the DA actually get? Did they get 10%? You know,
Yeah.
and so if that's the case, then there's a billion pounds of fentanyl in America, and it was smuggled in through the years. And now with these fake pills, I mean, I'm seeing fake pills, in stories, around me left and right, where they're getting 10,000 pills here, and up in the city, 10,000 pills were confiscated here, and how many pills don't get confiscated? That's the scary part. And what are the main pills that are being mass produced?
What I've seen is those Perk 30s. The Percocets are a big one. Xanax, I remember early, right before I got sober, I remember them talking about the pressed pills and seeing them because it was Xanax. That was like my thing. And you could tell they weren't real. But people were like, those are the good ones. And it never clicked. No one really talked about fentanyl then. So you didn't really know. And I probably was taking it. I probably was. By the grace of God, I'm here today. And Adderall and Roxy's, those, I don't even think they make them anymore. I don't know. That was like a big thing. They were $40 back then, but like they're getting more bang for their buck, the dealers, and making more profit by putting the fentanyl in, because it don't take a lot, And then it's in cocaine. It's in everything, really. It really is.
Yeah, so from what the research that I've looked at, the four main pills that are being, fake pills, and they're Oxycontins, which is still, even though there's all the negativity from Oxycontin is still one of the top ones. Percocet, which is what you talked about, and both of those are pain drugs. And then there's Xanax, which is being, mass produced in fake pills, and that's an anxiety pill. And then Adderall, which is the ADHD. Those are the four main ones that are being mass produced. But then there's other drugs out there. Norcos are being mass produced for fake pills, and these are things that people take for pain, for anxiety, for ADHD. They're real, legit pain resources and anxiety resources, and they actually serve a purpose. So people are taking their prescriptions. Okay, doctor's not giving me this prescription anymore, and what am I going to do? They go to the street, and what do they get on the street? They get straight fentanyl. And my biggest concern with this is, I went to college much later in life. 20 years ago, I was in college, and kids were taking Adderalls to stay awake at night so they could finish doing their homework. That's not addictive, mentality. Well, maybe it is, but it's they were, trying to be better students and have better grades, so they were taking Adderall. And now with the fake pills, these Adderalls that they're getting, because they're not prescribed, they're getting them from somebody in the dorm, somebody down the street, somebody somewhere else. They're getting these fake Adderalls, and they're straight fentanyl. And then you think, why would the cartels, why would the drug dealers, why would these people want to put, fake Adderalls in there? You're killing people, They don't care. They don't care if you die. They want you to be addicted, so you buy more. If you die, you die. And then the main thing is they want you to be addicted. And that's the scariest thing of all. That's the scariest thing of it all.
Yeah, I know people, like, because I'm still very involved with people who are still using. Like, I'm friends with everyone, and I just try to be a neutral person. I want people to be able to come to me when they're ready. I know people that actually purchase knowing that it's from a pharmacy, like they're gouging the pharmacy priced pills, like the soccer moms who are selling them. They're selling them for crazy prices because they're like, it's a guarantee it's from a pharmacy. Because some people are aware of them being fake, but some people are just oblivious to it and just want it. I remember buying Adderall in the cafeteria in high school, like off people. But back then it was probably their prescription, you know? So it was okay then, but now, like,
Here's the thing is we don't know. You don't know. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, look at see you right there, and you said it was probably somebody's prescription. You know, and it could have been, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. I mean, you know, back when I went to school, which was a lot longer ago than when you went to school. You know, we were buying weed in school, and you know, it wasn't. You know, you never thought, oh, well, this is prescription weed because it wasn't legal back then, and you never thought that. Never thought, oh, this is just somebody's prescription. No, this is just weed, and
Yeah.
it's kind of the same premise, you know. Maybe it's somebody's prescription. No, it's you can't think that way, right? It's you have to think if you're getting a pill from somebody, then it's not directly from a pharmacy. Then it is, you know, you got to think in your head, this is a fake pill, and know that you're taking fentanyl and risking your life for whatever reason. And this is where the epidemic comes in. This is where all this negativity is really coming to form.
Yeah, and this is why education is probably the best thing you can do to help the solution part of this. You have to be aware and know what's going on, and a lot of people just don't know, and that not knowing could kill somebody. So learning about this is very important, especially in today's world.
Having this format, having this podcast that we have right now, you know, the things that I would love people to know. First off, you know, fentanyl is real. Fentanyl is out there. Fentanyl is everywhere. It doesn't matter. You think that you're safe in your backyard because you haven't heard about it. Well, it's most likely going on. It's extremely potent. It's cheap. It's way cheaper to buy a fake Adderall than get a real Adderall. And it's highly addictive, you know, and people take this and they don't even know, you know, a kid taking Adderall in college to get, you know, stay awake and get better grades, yada, yada, who doesn't know that they're taking fake pills and basically becoming a fentanyl addict overnight and doesn't even know why. These are the things that education and awareness, this is what we need to talk about. This is what needs to be out in the open. The fact that it's just there, you know, and it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah, and I think it's like ever so crucial to talk to your children. I don't think any age is too young in today's world. And you got to have this conversation. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's important.
And see, we need to have this conversation with our friends. This needs to be an open dialogue with coworkers, with colleagues, you know, because anybody is susceptible. Anybody is susceptible. And, you know, it doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter. Because these, you know, we've got this psychological predisposition that medicine makes us better. You know, if it's a pill, if it's a Xanax, it's going to make me better. I've got anxiety. I've got issues. My heart's beating too fast. You know, the world is a crazy place. So Xanax is, you know, people think about it and they think, okay, that's a good thing. But this is where we need to tell everybody. Everybody needs to know that these fake pills are around and they're fake Xanaxes around, you know, and you just have to be cognizant. You have to know what's going on. And, you know, so I think I'm really glad we had this platform. I am glad we have the ability to talk about this, and hopefully other people will as well.
And here's a few words from our sponsor, Never Alone Recovery.
Never Alone Recovery is a resource center for anything addiction or mental health. We are a toll-free number. Feel free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 855-831-9996. This is available for someone who's suffering, also parents of those who are suffering, colleagues, whoever. Feel free to call at any time. Krista, what else do we have?
We host 5 free Zoom meetings a week, recovery meetings. We host a recovery TikTok live every morning, and you can find us on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and all of it will be in our description. Absolutely. And it's easier to get than from a doctor to find it on the streets. So doctors are a little more strict nowadays because of that whole opioid Oxycontin thing. And it's harder to go to a doctor and get a prescription for pain meds or Xanax or even Adderall. And it's easier to go to homeboy down the street.
You know what's interesting to me, Krista, is we've talked about fentanyl before. Right, we've had a few reels that have gone out. This whole social media deal, which is it's enormous, and we've put out things. Fentanyl is bad. Don't mess with fentanyl. Fentanyl is bad. It could kill you. And we still get hate in the comments. People that want to argue and say, "Well, it's not the number 1 cause. It might be the number 3 cause. It doesn't matter." It doesn't matter.
Overdose is overdose. It may not. It could be grandma accidentally taking 2 of her pain pills, overdosing. Fentanyl makes up a big chunk of those overdoses. It's like 70% or so, but overdose is still the leading cause.
18 years old to 45 years old. That's pretty much half of the population. These are the people that are susceptible, and anybody's susceptible. And, the people that want to jump into the comments and talk about, maybe I don't know what they're talking about. Maybe they're saying fentanyl isn't that bad. Okay. If you want to live that way, by all means. But the rest of us want to survive. And
come with me to one of the funerals that I've had to go to, and you'll think different. Like when you don't think it can happen to you or a loved one, and then next thing you know, it does. Some of these people that have been in the comments months down the road reach out to me and say, "My sister is struggling," and I'm like, "Well, you were just," I don't tell them, but they were just hating, and now they need help. You never know what someone's going through. And I mean, this is athletes, public officials, elected officials, teachers. Like, there's so many people that you don't know if they're having a bad day and just need something and they go get it. You never know. You really don't. Like you said, it doesn't discriminate.
You know what? Being a father, I take this very seriously. You're a mother. You take this very seriously. And not just for ourselves, but for the next generation. This is who we need to be talking to. We shouldn't be fighting this. There shouldn't be anybody fighting this, If you're fighting this, and, you think fentanyl is okay, are you giving it to your kids? No, you're not. Let's stand together on this. Let's stand together on fentanyl awareness and know that fentanyl is not good, and especially the illicit forms and all the ways that it's getting into the system. And it's just we need to stand together, have some solidarity on this, and maybe make a difference. Because right now we're losing. There are people, as we're sitting here talking, we're 22 minutes in, in this 22 minutes, hundreds of people have died. It's
every 4 minutes.
It's crazy. And, so that's just, our main objective here, with this format, with this podcast, is to just have people be aware and be a little more skeptical of what's going on around them. If you're getting pills from somewhere else, you're probably getting fake pills. Let's just settle at that. And if you are around it, then you know what? We got to talk about something else. Because people are dying around us. People are overdosing around us. And there is something that isn't talked about enough: Narcan. Narcan is, it reverses overdoses. It reverses overdoses. And now we're going to get hate in the comments because they're going to say Narcan doesn't do anything for fentanyl. It does.
It enables breathing, okay? And
It
like
does. It
second
does.
chances.
Narcan is, it's not a miracle cure. I mean, the miracle cure is not to do fentanyl to begin with. It's not to do heroin to begin with. But if you're around someone that, and because it could happen at any time, anywhere. One of my favorite things about Krista, and when I knew she was going to be my best friend, when I picked her up from the airport and she's got her bag with her and it was pink, and on the side of it was a little carrying case that had Narcan in it. And tell me why. And I asked you, I said, what is this? What do you got this for?
First off, I bring it everywhere I go. It is important to not leave it in your car in hot temperature though, because that's just, you want it to be effective if you need to use it. Every box comes with 2 doses and usually it takes more than that, but it's better to be safe than sorry. But what if like someone took a Xanax, they were scared to fly? Because I used to have to do that. And I don't know if I ever got them prescribed. And they were turning blue and not breathing. And I happened to be there, and I would kick myself if I didn't have it on me. And I chat GPT'd it. You can fly with Narcan. It doesn't even have to be in the box. You can take the little plastic things out and stick, because the box is kind of big. And, you never know who might need it. I mean, what if it's a flight attendant or a baby that gets in their mom's stash, or anybody really, I have a demonstration one. It looks like this. Sorry, my ring light.
Okay.
This is a demonstration one.
This is what Narcan looks like. You take the Narcan.
And it's, I've read, do not like prep it like Afrin or something, like, testing it out, because it's one shot. So you just put it in the nose, one shot, wait 2 to 3 minutes, and then you'll take the second dose and put it in. And it's important to call 911 first, because it only like holds for so long. I think the time has changed with the better technology and all this is getting, but it used to be 30 minutes. So it would block the receptors and stop the overdose for 30 minutes, but it can come back. So it's important to have like paramedics on their way to be able to help them. They usually have to go to the hospital. And if they're not overdosing, it's not going to hurt them. It's just safe. And a lot of places are giving out, your local public health department, or like here we have a drug and alcohol government place that gives out a free box every day. If you go every day, you can get one. And I, like any event I go to, like recovery events, they're always giving it out. I always grab one just in case. And people like late night will call me and go, hey, do you have a box of Narcan? And I'll be able to give it to them. Because if you go to the pharmacy, I think they're like $50, but it's not free. The opioid settlement fund pays for it. A lot of people, when I see posts about it, that they're giving out free Narcan, they'll be like, where's the free insulin? It's a settlement fund that's actually paying for this. It's free to the person, but they actually had to purchase it with some money. So that's where that comes in. And I think every first aid kit, from restaurants to gyms, especially gyms, police officers, every classrooms should have a box in there, Should be in a first aid kit.
I mean, everybody should have access to this. Everyone should have this, because people are susceptible anywhere. If you're at a party and, people are drinking, people are doing what they do, and somebody takes something, they don't even know that they're taking fentanyl and they fall out, you could be there and save their life, just by, putting this up their nose, calling 911. And, if you're a college student in the dorm room and somebody across the hall, all of a sudden you hear a thud, and you go running and they've taken an Adderall that wasn't prescribed and it turns out to be fentanyl. You could be a hero, I think this should be given out everywhere. I think everywhere should have Narcan. If you're at the airport, and I'm telling you, that was so brilliant when we talked about that, and you're like, what if somebody needed to take a Xanax? And and it made me think, I've never been prescribed Xanax. And before I quit drinking, I had taken a few Xanax, and this was before the fentanyl epidemic. And, and I think about that a lot. There's no more experimenting. There's no more experimenting. Back in the day, you could experiment with some stuff and you wouldn't, there was potential for overdosing. But now, with fentanyl being added to everything, there is no more experimenting. There's no more, I'm just going to give this a try. No, people are doing that and dying. And, so I think that's our message today is be aware. And and get prepared, and having that Narcan on the ready, knowing what to do with the Narcan, whether you're at a party, at the dorm, at the airport, anywhere where anybody could be. You could be at a park where somebody's walking around with social anxiety and they're trying to get over their fears of being around people, and they pop a Xanax and turns out the Xanax is straight fentanyl. Next thing you know, you could be saving somebody's life at a park. There's a billion different scenarios where this could happen, and it's happening. It's happening, and we can't turn a blind eye on it anymore. That's the message for today. Don't turn a blind eye on fentanyl.
Yeah, Narcan reverses the overdose. So that's important to know. And it's not enabling the addict, because I can't force somebody to quit using drugs. But if they overdose and you help them live another day, you have the opportunity to plant a seed and tell them, here's some recovery options. If you're ready, let's take it. If not, remember my phone number. And you can't use Narcan on yourself. That's very important. So if you're still using, be around somebody who has Narcan. And, I catch a lot of crap about talking about Narcan in my videos and stuff. And if Narcan never existed, my husband overdosed on my son's first birthday. He wasn't around us, but I got a phone call from the hospital and Narcan saved his life. And now he just celebrated 1.5 years sober. So you never know what's going to come of them being saved another life, but they're still here. They're still alive, and they have an opportunity to find recovery.
I didn't look up statistics on this, and maybe we can add those after, but the amount of lives that Narcan has saved is appalling, because there's a lot, as many people as are dying, there's 10 times more that are overdosing every day. And Narcan is saving lives. Actually, the fatality numbers have gone down a bit, which is great.
Because we're talking about it.
Because we're talking about it openly, and because we're talking about Narcan openly, and people are getting educated. So this is a good thing, and more people are going to rehab for fentanyl overdose. More people are going to detox for fentanyl overdose. This is getting out there, but it's not out there enough. Oh great, the numbers are going down. Yeah, but 50,000 people are still dying. And, so we need to keep continuing the conversation, and we need to keep talking about this, because as much as we want to say, fentanyl ain't going nowhere, and we got to keep talking about it until everybody knows, until everybody looks at that pill and gives it a second. Oh, maybe I don't know what this is. Maybe I shouldn't take this, and these are the conversations that hopefully get us there. And, and talking to our kids, talking to schools, talking to the PTAs, talking any place we can, any place that you can. We all have a voice, and we all can use it, and we all need to be doing this same thing. You don't need a platform or a podcast to go and talk to somebody somebody about the dangers and the realities of fentanyl overdose and poisoning.
Yeah, and this is what they call harm reduction, because we're trying to reduce the harm it's doing. And it's crazy you said that about the statistic. My community I'm part of this coalition, and they send me an email with the statistics in my community on how many people were given Narcan and lived, because some of the strains nowadays sometimes Narcan doesn't work, or the xylazine and the new rhino tranquilizer that's out there. Narcan doesn't work on that. It's for fentanyl. And also, if you're going to surgery and they give you pain meds after, most of the time they give you with your prescription, a box of Narcan. So it works for like prescription opioids as well, because you can take too many of those as well. So
yeah, so anybody listening to this today, whether you're, because people, if it hasn't affected you, right, you turn that blind eye, and if you go to church and you say, oh, nobody in my church has died yet, or you go to school and nobody at my school has died yet. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the yets. There's a lot of yets out there. Stay informed. And if you do need help, we've got a phone number. We've got a hotline. We're going to put the hotline in this podcast somewhere and let you know the 800 number that you can call. If you have a problem, if someone else around you has a problem, make the call. Make the call. Look up your local. There's so many different agencies and foundations out there, because there's people fighting this epidemic all the time. Pick up the phone and call and, get on top of it before it's too late. And, I know this is our very first podcast on for Never Alone, Never Again, but it's just that you're not alone. You're not alone. If you're struggling, give us a call. If you're concerned about someone else, give us a call. Pick up the phone, and fentanyl is aggressive, right? So it's time for us to be aggressive as well. I want to thank everybody for listening today. Krista, thank you so much for this conversation. And, I knew that this was going to be a good conversation. I know how your passion for this and for helping others. What are your final thoughts?
if you are struggling, reach out, because you're not going to be met with judgment. You're going to be met with love and compassion and understanding and possibly a solution. All we can do is offer suggestions and just try to educate yourself. And if you see something, say something, because turning that blind eye could end up turning to a funeral. I talk with grieving mamas all day, every day, and it's heartbreaking, because they just wanted their kids to have one more day. And you can make a difference. Your voice does matter.
It really does. So thank you all for listening. And if you could share this out to other people who might be having a problem or who don't know what fentanyl is, do that. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, I'm sure we're going to get a bunch of the haters that come through. By all means, send us a comment. We'll respond. And I look forward to it. And I look forward to our next one, where hopefully it won't be so deep. And but we're going to be back frequently talking to you about recovery and addiction and faith. And it's going to be there's going to be a lot in the near future. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks, guys.